The, the third speaker in this morning's session is Frank Gehry. There are a number of people, I suppose, who are so well known that they don't need an introduction, but the habit here is if Napoleon were speaking, we would introduce him. Now, Frank Gehry was educated at the University of Southern California and the Graduate School of Design at Harvard, before working with the architects Victor Gruen and Pereira and Luckman in Los Angeles, and then with André Raymondet in Paris. From his studio in Santa Monica, he has built public and private buildings, as you know, in the United States, Europe, and Asia. He is noted for a concern that the inhabitants of the spaces he creates are comfortable, and that the buildings address both the context and the culture of their sites. Among his many honors and awards are the Arnold Brunner Memorial Prize in Architecture from the American Academy of Arts and Letters in 1977. In 1989, he was awarded, as you know, the Pritzker Architecture Prize. In 1992, he received the Premium Imperial Award by the Japan Art Association, and in 1999, the National Medal of Arts from the President, and the Gold Medal from the American Institute of Architects. Mr. Gehry has taught at Yale, Harvard, and the Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich. In his studio in Santa Monica, Mr. Gehry employs a network of sophisticated computer-aided design workstations for the development of projects and in the translation of design ideas into technical documents that are required for construction. Among his more recent works and projects are the multi-use Deutsches Bank next to the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin, which is not quite yet inaugurated, an office complex in Dusseldorf, the Walt Disney Concert Hall in Los Angeles, which is not quite finished, an educational facility for MIT, an addition to the Corcoran Gallery here in Washington, and of course the Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao that has had such marvelous press over the last few years. His forthcoming projects appear with frequency in architecture magazines and in the daily press. Mr. Gehry will speak to us this morning about his working process. Please join me in welcoming Frank Gehry.
No, I'm fine. The last time I was roped into one of Irving Lavin's scholarly events was in Boston. It was a symposium on aberrant art. I was the last speaker before the break then, and as I left, I got in the elevator, and two very scholarly gentlemen, I hope they're not here, don't take insult as to what I'm going to say, followed me in the elevator not realizing I was there, and they said, "Well, that is terrible. He didn't show one plan." So today I have a couple of plans. The reason I realized then that the reason I don't show plans, or I don't think to show, I think in plan, and my early conceptions are in plan, and when I go astray with a design, I always go back to the plan, reorganize it, and then march forward from there. So, but I think of them as not the main event in the work, and it's different for architects practicing today than Michelangelo, obviously. When his drawings represent a material that everybody understands. It's always stone, and so the drawings indicate a kind of a mass, and there's a consensus or a feeling when you look at the drawings that you understand surface and so on. Surfaces today are so multi-possible that it's hard to represent in plan 1/3 of a millimeter of titanium on the Bilbao building. How would you do that? It would be less than a sliver of a line. So our drawings, our processes, our work has to deal with surface, and it inevitably takes you to modeling. And in my work, we sketch in model almost as much or more than in drawings, ultimately leading to mock-ups of surface that get bigger and bigger until we actually make a full-scale mock-up where we do study the materials and how the light is going to affect it and how the detailing is going to affect the sense of surface. And so there's an enormous amount of work in that the old guys didn't have to worry about as much, or had to represent as much. I'm going to show a lot of the sketches and for 3 projects and the sketch models. And the first project is the Bilbao Museum, which is complete. The other 2 are not. The MIT project, which is under construction, and finally the Corcoran, which the final picture will look like it is more finished than it really is. It is still a sketch and a work in progress. What I'm not showing are the computer drawings. I hate them. Now that shows my age, because my young colleague, Greg Lynn, has taken the computer, and I'm not going to preempt his talk, to another level, and he designs it. I cannot design with the computer because the computer drawings take the feeling out of it for me, and for me to work on the computer and hold the dream image, I call it, or the feeling that I feel for the project that I'm designing, without seeing it there. I have to hold it in my imagination while I'm doing the work, and it's like putting your finger in the flame for me. You can only put it in and like that. I have logged 3.4 minutes on the computer before I go stark raving mad and run out of the office and said, "Help me, turn on, call the fire engines." Having said that, everybody in my office has a computer. All of our work is done with the highest degree of computerized sophistication, and you couldn't do what I do, you couldn't build what I do without that. And we're in the process of working with Dassault Systems and IBM, and I hope Greg Lynn and a few others, developing a seamless process using the computer from the conception to the end of construction and to the maintenance of the building beyond. Now, there are pieces of this already in available software, but there are a lot of spaces between that are missing, and our hope is to make the architect once more the parent in the equation. The current documents, the current legal processes in making architecture infantilize the architect, and it's because the legal processes protect, as developed by the AIA, want to protect the architect. So there's a protection system which takes responsibility away from you, and by allowing that to happen to your life, you then abdicate some of the power you have in the relationship with clients and the construction industry. And now with the computer, the degree of accuracy that is possible in documenting surface, structure, is incredible, and it's so we are working with legal minds, with insurance companies, trying to plug these gaps and maybe change some of those things. It's a long shot, but it's certainly the equipment, the technology is now possible to do some of that. Okay. both forward, it says. So you can drop the lights a bit. This is Bilbao finished. There's the 1/3 of a millimeter of titanium. And it's very difficult to represent that surface in sketches. But sketches do have a sense of emotion. And so the sketch on the left was my very first drawing after I saw the site, 3 days after the project was given to me. I did understand the program, and I did have a sense of the scale of the program in relation to the site. So I needed that to make this sketch. I couldn't have just ripped it off. But I did understand the program, and I did understand, and it's, you look at the finished building, and there are some issues that translate it. These were all done within that same period, at the very first weeks of the commission. Studying the bridge that existed, thinking of the scale. I think the scale of the building surrounding, the texture of the building surrounding, and these are kind of notations about that, although they're very obscure the way they are. There was a whole piece of development here. It turned out to be a cafe. Originally, it was going to be a separate entry, and originally I had asked Klaus Oldenburg to do a sculpture there, which didn't quite happen. I ended up doing my own sculpture, but no. I'm trying too hard, I think. This is a plan. These are plans. This one, they even have the coordinates of the. This is the river. This is the bridge, and this is the organization of the entry and the beginning of a feeling that I was looking for. This is a more clearer plan where the long gallery started that goes through and underneath the bridge and terminates in a tower. The central atrium space, the galleries surrounding it, etc. These were this was the first sketch model. The entrance, the tower, the large gallery, the river, the bridge, and this flower-like shape, which became the atrium ceiling, the skylight over the main gallery. From here, we flipped it. We took this and put it on this side, and it's a smaller piece. I think we flipped these two to open it to the city in a different way, which I then discovered that they were doing things on this side that I hadn't known before. So I adjusted the sketches at that point. This thing doesn't quite work. Many of these models, I'd say maybe 30 or 40 of this scale, and always working with two scales at the same time. So there were, when you're working on a design, you can become you've seen this in our time, in modern time, where the drawings of the architect become more important than the building, and it's a problem that you can become enamored with these artifacts because you work on them and you love them to death sometimes. And it's not the finished building. So you have to, I've used the idea of moving back and forth in scale to jog me out of becoming too fascinated with any one piece as a finished object. every project ends up with a wall full of parts, like a tailor shop, patterns of the various pieces. And we try them and look at them, and then every day we photograph the results of that day's work, because inevitably I go too far, I push something too far, and I say, gee whiz, last Tuesday it really looked good, what happened? And with this documentation we can go back, reconstruct last Tuesday, and so it's a process that if I knew where I was going, I wouldn't go there. So I rely on intuition. I guess my great model for that is Matisse with the cutouts. I mean, if he had known where he was going, I don't know. His state of physical state at the time he did those, and to do those so extraordinarily. So I trust the intuition, and I continue, but I look at it endlessly. So it's like watching paint dry. To sit around my office, and the kids that come to work for me get very bored because they think it's going to be exciting, and it turns out just to be excruciating. This is MIT. There is a site over here, and so this is the dome, and we were given this site. And it's a project, I don't want to go into a lot of detail. It's a project that is going to unite 7 disparate departments around, so gather the wagons around a cafe, and obviously to try and get interaction between these departments. We do study models on the site, so I forgot to mention that. We make elaborate site models of all the buildings, and have more at larger scale. So I have a section of this part of the campus that would fill half of this stage. And so we're always working in the context with the textures of the existing buildings, and even as best we can, the textures of the future buildings, if we know them, because that gets into your psyche and your unconscious, and helps with the evolution of the design. So these were the first sketches for the MIT complex. It's a kind of a Morandi-like idea of separate pieces, which is a strategy I've used in quite a few of my buildings, with the central space. The wagons circling the center, the existing building, the ties to campus, the beginning of an amphitheatre, which you see again, the beginning of a window sense of texture, and these are just notations for me. They don't, if you see them as I'm doing them, I guess they don't make much sense. Somehow it makes sense at the end. A lot of study models in blocks, studying the plan. So if you don't think I do enough with plan, there are 50 of these, organizing the circulation, the plan, in relation to the site. And then this is a plan drawing. I think it's a plan drawing. Yeah, it's got a street. And those are plan drawings. And then this is a plan model showing the central space facing south, so that we get sun, the cafe, the connection to the existing buildings, the relationship to the existing pool house, the start of a outdoor amphitheater. One of the scientists, Michael Dertouzos, is Greek, and he asked for a Greek amphitheater as part of his... Noam Chomsky will be in this part of the building. And he asked me for an office with a window that falls out so the squirrels can come in. More plan, more sketches, getting closer to what the final actually you'll see. But as part of that, we do these very sketch models where we start to separate the materials. Like the budget was for an all-brick building. They couldn't afford anything but an all-brick building. And they didn't want an all-brick building. So we started to see how we could introduce the sculptural metal parts and contrast them. And of course, if you show a client a model that looks like this, they probably, that movie Shrek, that word comes to mind. But I do show these models to the clients, and I want them to understand the process and what I'm thinking, so that by the end of the game, they are proprietary. They feel like they're involved and part. We use the computer to take these, even from this model, take the surface area off, so that I can compute whether we have a chance of meeting budgets with these kind of areas and surfaces. Again, the plan and the organization of the pods. These are the offices. The scheme is all the offices surround the perimeter, and then the communal spaces for the labs are, the small ones are in here, and then the larger ones are here, and then the central communal space. So it's a hierarchy of privacy. And it's very simple, actually. I was struggling with the shapes, with the ideas, building models of them, introducing color. At the same time, we're doing materials research and costing brick systems and metal systems for this area. You know, if I came into your office with one of these, you'd throw me out, right? They were very, I mean, they wrote some nasty email to me, but this is getting closer to the thing. At one point, I had a roof covering it. I thought of it as theater. If you could make the background building and then cover the space with a roof and create the communal spaces, almost like objects on the stage, like Teatro Olimpico. But the cost of this was horrific and not possible. And finally, I didn't like it anyway. So this is closer to the finale, the Vassar Street elevation, still with that roof. The large model is the last model, where we make all the parts and do all the interiors. Each office interior is done, and there are many mock-ups of office interiors. I had 300 or so iconoclastic professors that needed offices, and each one wanted their office a specific way. Mostly they wanted their office exactly the way their office has always been. So here you're looking at three model scales. This is larger. This working back and forth in the design between these two scales, and then finally the larger. And that's the final building. These are classrooms. They have a nursery or a daycare child center. This piece is a headpiece for Rod Brooks, the robot guy. And he wanted something to symbolize when they had a breakthrough, scientific breakthrough, And so we made a little pipe here that's going to have a little puff of smoke. So his robot is Cog, and Cog is the robot that's learning from his mistakes, and we're all going to be working for Cog, so we have to treat him well. I had 3 donors here, so Bill Gates is paying for this part, and another guy for this, and another guy for this, and they wanted something special for Bill Gates, and I made this fortune teller ball. And inside it will be all kinds of electronics that will do things at night, so you'll see. They wanted somehow the building to read what's going on, how many people are there at any time. They're very proud that they work around the clock and there's so many people in the building all night and so on. So they want to show off that. And we made this, and the other donor got jealous, and so we gave him one too. And these are the interiors. So we go quite far, and for each of these there are sketch models and sketch drawings, and I'm not going to bore you with all of that. And then it goes into the computer, and we've now been able to, in the Seattle building we just completed, at least a third of the building was built without paper. So the real breakthrough is going to be the 777 airplane, the latest one, was built without paper. If they'd made the drawings and so on, it would fill several of these rooms to the top. They did it all in the computer, and it's very accurate and it's built. And I think architecture ultimately has to go there. And we're experimenting. We experimented with it in Seattle, and it was very accurate and very possible and efficient. We developed the program for the cutting of the steel. The program was given to the steel cutter. The steel cut it. The steel was cut. It was numbered and then brought to the site and erected without a drawing. And it was very accurate. This is the first sketches for the Corcoran. So this is the existing Corcoran building, the Platt building. And this is the existing Union building, which nobody likes. And this is the beginnings of the Corcoran. And what we have to do, because of the site, is create a building that I think accepts optimistically, though we don't like it, as part of the composition, because it ain't going to go away. And so the composition has to be a tripartite composition. And these are studies along the way. And this is a plan, with this being New York Avenue and this being 17th Street. And I study, all like pulling it up, pulling the skirts up so you enter, or having some kind of scale at the entry level, and then a horizontal composition so it relates to the roof, which then I didn't like at all. It just it trivialized some of the existing building, and those issues are part of these sketches. At the same time, models are made. There's the old building we don't like. There's the building we do like. Here's the guy in the middle. And how to invade the body. We're body snatchers invading the old building. In the end, we're not invading it. We decided not to invade it. We're going to be very polite to the old building. This was one of the breakthrough sketches models where I just took tracing paper because I was starting to think of surface, of the quality of light. I was thinking the existing building of the Corcoran is marble, and I wanted to have our building be a new marble building, which we absolutely couldn't afford. And this was even more outrageous. I was thinking of alabaster. But you can see that the incubation, the thought, creating an entry, And then where we're at now is this design, which, bear with me, is still a sketch, so don't get nervous. It needs, but it's getting there, and it says the things we want to say, and there's a skylight, and the school is underneath, and this brings light into the school below, and there's a lot of sophisticated organization, plan organization, and cost organization. It's managing a campaign to build a building like this, which involves the technology, the costs, the Fine Arts Commission. There are many hands to touch this, and so the sketches are just the beginning of that process. Thank you.